Hey y'all, welcome back as we continue our journey through the scriptures together, and we are walking through the book of Numbers. Today we're on Numbers chapter 18, and God in the previous chapter, he had resolved the leadership issue and who God's chosen leader of the camp would be, who the high priest would be, and the priesthood, the chosen priesthood of God. And here we move on to the Lord's judgment against the rebels at the tabernacle and his miraculous defense of Aaron's priestly ministry. Because of that, because God just did this, the people of Israel were terrified. When we left off at the end of the chapter, they were convinced they're all going to die. And they're terrified to even have God's presence in the camp with them. They're terrified of having the tabernacle present. And God's presence in the camp was the distinctive mark of the people of Israel. And that was what set them apart from the other nations around them. They were the one nation that God chose to dwell with. They had the one true living God of the entire cosmos dwelling and present with them. And to calm the fears of the Israelites, Moses spends a lot of time through the next two chapters explaining the ministry of the priests and the importance of the tabernacle within the camp. And God's people were stubborn, God's people were rebellious, and they suffered the consequences for that. But in spite of all of that, the Lord was faithful to care for them, and he still poured out the love and the provision of God upon their lives. And we'll continue in chapter 18, verse 1. Then the Lord said to Aaron, "You and your sons and your relatives from the tribe of Levi will be held responsible for any offenses related to the sanctuary. But you and your sons alone will be held responsible for violations connected with the priesthood. Bring your relatives of the tribe of Levi, your ancestral tribe, to assist you and your sons as you perform the sacred duties in front of the tabernacle of the covenant. But as the Levites go about all their assigned duties at the tabernacle, they must be careful not to go near any of the sacred objects or the altar. If they do, both you and they will die. The Levites must join you in fulfilling their responsibilities for the care and the maintenance of the tabernacle. But no unauthorized person may assist you. You yourselves must perform the sacred duties inside the sanctuary and at the altar. If you follow these instructions, the Lord's anger will never again blaze against the people of Israel. I myself have chosen your fellow Levites from among the Israelites to be your special assistants. They are a gift to you, dedicated to the Lord for service in the tabernacle. Both you and your sons, the priests, must personally handle all the priestly rituals associated with the altar and with everything behind the inner curtain. I am giving you the priesthood as your special privilege of service. Any unauthorized person who comes too near the sanctuary will be put to death." So here we have the gifts that God has laid out for the priesthood, and with gifts from God comes responsibility. God made it clear that it was the responsibility of the priest to minister in the tabernacle and protect it from any defilement. It was the responsibility of the Levites to assist the priests with the tabernacle duties. And as long as the priests and the Levites obeyed this rule, there would be no further judgment sent to the people. The priestly ministry was a serious matter, and God wanted it taken seriously and respected. If the priests didn't follow God's instructions, they could die. And God held Aaron and his sons responsible for any offenses committed against the sanctuary and the priesthood. And the priesthood was God's gift to Israel. Without priests, the people couldn't approach God or have that interaction with God. Today we have Jesus. He is our eternal and final high priest. And because of Jesus, we can run to the throne room of God and enjoy his presence. He wants us to. He wants us to know him and experience him personally and intimately in our lives. And here, the Levites were God's gifts to the priests. Everything rises and falls with leadership, and Aaron was the chosen leader. He was accountable to God for whatever happened in the sanctuary, and God made that responsibility very clear to Aaron. And we'll continue in verse 8. The Lord gave these further instructions to Aaron. I myself have put you in charge of all the holy offerings that are brought to me by the people of Israel. I have given all these consecrated offerings to you and your sons as your permanent share. You are allotted the portions of the most holy offering that is not burned on the fire. This portion of all the most holy offerings, including the grain offering, sin offering, and guilt offering, will be most holy, and it belongs to you and your sons. You must eat it as a most holy offering. All the males may eat of it, and you must treat it as most holy. All the sacred offerings and special offerings presented to me when the Israelites lift them up before the altar also belong to you. I have given them to you and to your sons and daughters as your permanent share. Any member of your family who is ceremonially clean may eat of these offerings. I also give you the harvest gifts brought by the people as offerings to the Lord, the best of the olive oil, new wine, and grain. All the first crops of their land that the people present to the Lord belong to you. Any member of your family who is ceremonially clean may eat this food. Everything in Israel that is specially set apart for the Lord also belongs to you. The firstborn of every mother, whether human or animal, that is offered to the Lord will be yours. But you must always redeem your firstborn sons and the firstborn of the ceremonially unclean animals. Redeem them when they are 1 month old. The redemption price is 5 pieces of silver as measured by the weight of the sanctuary shekel, which equals 20 gerahs. However, you may not redeem the firstborn of cattle, sheep, or goats. They are holy and have been set apart for the Lord. Sprinkle their blood on the altar and burn their fat as a special gift, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. The meat of these animals will be yours, just like the breast and the right thigh that are presented by lifting them up as special offerings before the altar. Yes, I am giving you all these holy offerings that the people of Israel bring to the Lord. They are for you and your sons and daughters to be eaten as your permanent share. This is an eternal, unbreakable covenant between the Lord and you, and it also applies to your descendants. And the Lord said to Aaron, the priests will receive no allotment of land or share of property among the people of Israel. I am your share and your allotment. As far as the tribe of Levi, your relatives, I will compensate them for their service in the tabernacle. Instead of an allotment of land, I will give them the tithes from the entire land of Israel. So as servants of God, the priests and the Levites were taken care of by the people of God, by the offerings that were brought in. That was the provisions that were given to the Lord and then shared with the priests and the Levites. Levi would have no inheritance of land in the promised land because the Lord himself was their inheritance. And through these provisions, God is making sure they're all taken care of. And we'll continue in verse 22. From now on, no Israelites except priests or Levites may approach the tabernacle. If they come too near, they will be judged guilty and will die. Only the Levites may serve at the tabernacle, and they will be held responsible for any offenses against it. This is a permanent law for you to be observed from generation to generation. The Levites will receive no allotment of land among the Israelites, because I have given them the Israelites' tithes, which have been presented as sacred offerings to the Lord. This will be the Levites' share. That is why I said they would receive no allotment of land among the Israelites. The Lord also told Moses, give these instructions to the Levites. When you receive from the people of Israel the tithes I have assigned as your allotment, give 1/10 of the tithes you receive, a tithe of the tithe, to the Lord as a sacred offering. The Lord will consider this offering to be your harvest offering, as though it were the first grain from your own threshing floor, or wine from your own winepress. You must present 1/10 of the tithe received from the Israelites as a sacred offering to the Lord. This is the Lord's sacred portion, and you must present it to Aaron the priest. Be sure to give to the Lord the best portions of the gifts given to you. Also give these instructions to the Levites. When you present the best part as your offering, it will be considered as though it came from your own threshing floor or winepress. You Levites and your families may eat this food anywhere you wish, for it is your compensation for serving in the tabernacle. You will not be considered guilty for accepting the Lord's tithes if you give the best portion to the priests. But be careful not to treat the holy gifts of the people of Israel as though they were common. If you do, you will die. So again, he's saying, respect the things that are holy, respect the things that belong to God, respect God, honor God, glorify God in everything we do. Everything we have comes from God, and we give back to God generously, hysterically. And the tithes that God's people brought into the sanctuary were given to the Levites, and 10% of the produce belonged to God. The Levites would in turn take a tithe of what they received and offer it to the Lord and give it to the high priest. Those who serve the Lord and his people should be supported from the material blessings that God gives his people. As 1 Corinthians 9:14 says, those who preach the gospel should live from the gospel. Abraham and Jacob tithed prior to the law. The law wasn't written or laid out, but they still tithed. We see that they did. And it was a matter of the heart because they wanted to give back to God. And we give generously to God because we want to give back to him. Everything that he pours out is his. And we're to steward it well for his glory and his honor, and honor him in and through everything he provides us. And it's out of a desire to honor the Lord by giving back to him what's already his. And it's still meant to be a matter of a heart today. Tithing is just the beginning. That's the starting point. But he says to don't do it if your heart's not right. Don't do it if you're not going to give hysterically, joyfully, gloriously to the Lord in a generous heart, because you want to give to the Lord in his kingdom. Out of our love and worship of God, we should desire nothing more than to give him back what's already his, what he has poured out into our lives. It all belongs to him. So we should be generous. Give to the people in our communities. Give to the people who God puts in our lives. Give to God's house. Give to God's kingdom. Give to whatever is needed to bring forth his kingdom and spread the gospel to the ends of the earth. Whatever he puts on your heart, give, because it is all his, and he wants his kingdom full, which means we need to be using the resources that he pours into our lives for his glory, for his honor, and to further expand his almighty eternal kingdom. Thanks, y'all. I hope you're having a glorious day in the Lord.